Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir, and we've got on tap today for you our continuing series. It's a debate, part 5, between Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire and Ana Kasparian of the Young Turks. It's through the Daily Wire. This was the debate that they put on. And we're going to get to that in the next few seconds, folks. But before we do so, we just want to let you know, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us, and especially comment below. Let us know what you think. Let's get to my reaction video between Ana and Ben, part 5.
So, obviously, I think that we all see the problems with the healthcare system. It's sort of a weird Frankensteinian monster, this sort of private public monster in which virtually all medical care in the United States is publicly subsidized at some level by Medicare, Medicaid, by hospital reimbursements that are involved with local and state regulation. The levels of regulatory thickets and the amount of administration, the administrative cost for healthcare in the United States is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. And, I think that the big problem with healthcare is that it's such a thicket now that no matter which side you come at it from, you are going to get wrecked for even poking a stick into it, right? The minute you poke a stick at it, ooze comes out. Because if you come at it from my side of the aisle, which is it needs more privatization, we should get rid of the connection between your employment. If I were coming at this tabula rasa, you get rid of the connection between your employment and your healthcare. It's absurd. Why is your employer paying for your healthcare in the first place, right? You should.
Well, how would people? So, look, I agree with you on that. I think a single-payer system would do away with the need for employers to provide coverage for their employees. I actually hate the system where if you're working at a place that you might despise and you want to move on, or maybe you want to start your own business, right? You're less willing to do it if your healthcare is reliant on you staying at the company you hate so much.
Right.
I think it's actually stifled a lot of economic growth. I think there would be a lot more small businesses, successful small businesses, if people had that freedom to just walk away knowing that they wouldn't lose their health coverage as a result. You get what I'm saying?
No, first of all, I totally agree with you. I think that's...
And there's a point of agreement between all three of us. Hey, kumbaya moment. Let's all agree to agree.
That's why I would prefer to go back to individual and community-based insurance. Right? This is why the lack of social fabric really is a problem, because in my vision of a perfect healthcare world, essentially because you know your neighbors and you know your community, you don't want your neighbors to die, your community helps subsidize your healthcare. But I have very serious doubts about the national community subsidizing healthcare at a large scale, because I don't know that person in New York. I don't know what their habits are. I don't know what incentives they have to engage in the healthcare structure. And you do see a wide variety of sort of models that have been used, right? Singapore is a much more privatized healthcare system than, for example, Great Britain. So there are a bunch of different ways to sort of slice this particular issue.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, because we hear a lot of, I feel like the right wing in America puts words in the mouths of Canadians and people living in Great Britain when it comes to their health insurance, policy, and their nationalized health care. But you talk to them and they seem to love it. So I'll give you an example. So when Boris Johnson was running again for prime minister, what was really interesting is how he kept emphasizing the need to bolster.
Oh, it's a third rail there. You can't touch it.
But it's a third rail because of how much the people living there love their healthcare system. And so there's freedom that comes along with that. When you consider the fact that our life expectancy in the United States is comparable to that of Cuba's, there's something broken in our system.
Well, so first of all, whenever we get into these sorts of discussions, you have to start looking at apples to apples comparisons in terms of the demographics of the United States, our age, the ethnic composition of the United States, because different ethnicities actually have different health problems disproportionately. You have to look at the poverty rate in different areas. Obviously, the life expectancy in Vermont is significantly higher than the life expectancy in, say, Alabama, and so that is a wide gap that is not really attributable necessarily to healthcare quality, because again, the same national system applies to both Vermont and Alabama. So you have to, the United States is also a country of 340 million people. Cuba is a country of significantly fewer people.
Right.
So all of these, this is why I sort of object to any attempt to use Norwegian models and apply them to a significantly more diverse, heterogeneous, and large country.
Well, okay, so let me.
What you already know.
to that because if you look at what's worked, because Cuba, I mean, obviously, incredibly poor country, especially with embargoes and all of that. Donald Trump declared it a state sponsor of terror, which led to other countries feeling very uncomfortable doing any business with Cuba. So its healthcare system is severely under-resourced. But what they've done correctly is they've focused most of their energy on preventative care, because preventative care is less costly than just allowing people to get super sick. At that point, whatever illness they have is a lot more costly to deal with. So they're like, all right, we don't have the resources. We just got to make sure we really hone in on preventative care. That's worked out really well for them. Whereas in the United States, people aren't getting the preventative care they need to prevent severe illnesses because it's so costly, right? So we need...
That has nothing to do with the cost. I mean, the main thing that has to do with the fact is that we are a first world country. We don't eat properly. Our diet sucks. We eat crappy food. We don't care about that. Look, it doesn't matter. In Cuba, you don't supersize in Cuba or triple size in Cuba. All right? You don't have the types of foods that make people sick, that aren't the good kind of foods. We consume way too many carbs in this country, way too much sugar. Childhood obesity, adult obesity is it's epidemic proportions. Diabetes, 1 and 2. I mean, it is unbelievable. But that's because we are a first world country and we eat and gorge ourselves on so much crap we put into our bodies. That nutritionally is where we're deficient in. And I don't mean in terms of we get plenty of nutrition, but what I'm talking about is that in terms of just being completely careless of our bodies and making sure that we eat properly, but you can't regulate that in a free society. You just can't. So what Anna is basically saying is that, it's just a cost factor and, it's preventative diseases and that they just do it. No, there's a lot of things between what you eat, how long you eat it for, what you put into your body, what it's going to do to your body. These are all those significant challenges that do occur.
Need to do something.
Well, I mean, first we should tell people to stop eating so much. I mean, the United States is an extraordinarily fat country. I mean, by the stats, we're a very fat country. I mean, you compare us to Cuba, you compare us to anywhere in Scandinavia. This is a country that has, this is why during COVID, people would say 40% of the population has pre-existing health problems. I mean, meanwhile, Sweden's like, let her rip, man, we're all in great shape. But it's, so again, comparing apples to oranges is a very difficult thing. When it comes to the NHS or Canada, the only pushback that I'd give there is that you'd be hard-pressed to find a government-provided universal system of any sort that is widely disparaged by the people who benefit from it. Meaning that if you have no available alternative, people who are on food stamps like the food stamp system, people who are on welfare like the welfare system, people who get student loans like the student loan system, people who get government-subsidized mortgages like the government-subsidized mortgage system, once you make people dependent, which is why in the United States, as I say, anytime you poke the status quo from either side, you get penalized, right? People will say, I hate my healthcare, and then the minute somebody tries to screw with their healthcare, they're like, God, we got to go after them.
I mean, I think Medicare is a good example of that. So is Social Security.
It is. They're both going to be insolvent, but that's...
I don't think that's necessarily true.
We'll have to raise taxes pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
Or lower benefits, or lower the retirement age.
I mean,
which is really what we should do,
I think you're going to hate me for saying this, but I think the cap on Social Security taxes should be lifted entirely.
Oh, no, I'm not. By the way, that is at least an ideologically consistent position.
Yeah.
Meaning that if you are going to say that we need to maintain Social Security as it currently stands, as a defined outcome plan as opposed to a defined contributions plan, then of course you're going to have to raise taxes.
Right.
I mean, like I'll say that, I have more, it is a more honest argument to say that we want Scandinavian style welfare systems, so we need Scandinavian style taxes, than the lie that is currently being pursued by both sides, I will say, that we have to spend exorbitant amounts of money and never pay for it under any circumstances, and then just basically bet that the bill will never come due.
Right.
So if you say raise Social Security tax, I'm like, okay, fine, that's an argument we can make, right? Because what I object to is you'll say raise Social Security taxes to pay for Social Security, and I'll say I don't want that to happen. That's a good debate. What I object to is if I'll say, listen, in order for Social Security to maintain, you're going to have to go to austerity measures. You're going to have to cut the age of retirement because people are living longer. You're going to have to you're going to have to raise taxes. And the person on the other side will say, none of that's true. It's like, no, one of those things has to be true.
But yeah,
right?
but see, that's what I'm talking about. Just going back to our conversation earlier, determining the difference between a good faith or bad faith individual and whether or not you debate with that individual. This is exactly a perfect example. You're being honest, and you're at least acknowledging, the flaws from the bad faith people, the inconsistencies from bad faith. Like, why even engage in a debate with someone who's inconsistent, isn't honest about what they really want? So I just wanted to go back to that.
No, well, the fact of the matter is that if you really go ahead and debate that type of person that you're talking about, my answer to that would be is debate that person. You debate with facts. They're going to debate with what you think are lies or misleading statements or mistruths. The people that are listening to those debates, they want information. They're starving for information. They are thirsting for information. They're in a desert and there's no information available and they're searching for it. They will be able to find the mirage. Is the mirage that other person that you're talking about? Or is the mirage actually you yourself? Let the people decide. And if you think you've got the facts, the figures, the statistics on your side, hey, and the truth is on your side, we'll be able to discern that. Don't think that the people that are listening on both sides of the aisle, whether they're Democrats or liberals or conservatives and Republicans or right or left, they're not stupid people. They want to engage. They're thirsting for information. And then they can take the information from both sides, discern it, decipher it, look at it, investigate it, and then let them come up with their own answers, their own decisions, and let the chips fall where they may. Don't be afraid of debating people that you think are, not of good faith or whatever. That's not your decision to make. I mean, it's decisions you're to make if you want to go ahead and debate or not debate them, but don't do it with that type of mindset and that type of thinking. That's just my position.
Yeah.
Conversation, because it's a perfect example of what I mean.
And I think this also ties back into, again, that localism conversation that we were having before.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in just 1 second. First, let's talk about the things that I've said many times when it comes to economics, is that I'm a communist in my own house, and I'm a high-level capitalist when it comes to the greater areas of elevation. Mm-hmm. So the further you get out from my local community, the more capitalistic and free market oriented I am. In my house, I have a joint bank account with my wife. Mm-hmm. Right? My wife earns significantly less money than I do. It does not matter. It is both of our money, right? Which is what we tell our kids. It's not daddy earning the money. It's our family earning the money. And our family is communist because we're a family. But I'm not going to be a communist with some rando over in North Dakota. That's not my job. Right? I don't know that person. I love my family more than I love that person. And anybody who tells you they don't love their family more than they love rando is lying to you. It's just not true. And so what that means is that social solidarity has to be the predicate for any policy. And ironically, what's been happening is that as social solidarity breaks down, people want more control at the top level of government to try to create an ersatz social solidarity. And that's not going to happen. It's going to make the problem significantly worse. So if you argued to me in my local religious community, right, my local synagogue where I'm Orthodox, which means that in my community there are 300 families in our synagogue. We all know each other. We go over to each other's houses. We babysit each other's kids. If you said to us, we are going to have a synagogue subsidized national health care single payer program, I'd be like, okay, that's worth arguing about. Like I'm definitely willing to have that conversation. I know all you people. I trust you people. I trust you're not going to be a free rider on the system and take advantage of the system because I know you. And there are social penalties for you not doing it. Right? If you refuse to engage in the duties of the community, then we cannot have you over for lunch, right? We cannot have you at the synagogue, right? There are certain penalties that attach, but you can do that at a small level. As you abstract up the chain, it becomes more and more difficult. And one of the things I see, and this happens pretty frequently on both sides of the aisle, is an attempt to take your top level solution and cram it all the way down in a universalistic fashion. So people will take sort of a democratic socialism that might apply in your local community, and they'll say, okay, well, I want to apply that at the national level, but that's not. You can't do that. Or you'll say libertarians will do the same thing. I'm a libertarian. I think there should be no internal penalties for any individual decision that you want to make. That's not going to work in your family, and it's not going to work in your local community. In other words, the levels of control that you exercise ought to change based on the level of abstraction that we're talking about.
I think that part of the problem is we don't see each other as fellow Americans at all. And we're so divided that, I think you make a valid point in, at least some portion of the country wanting to reject some of these national policies or national programs. They don't see someone living in here. You know what? I'll put it in the context of the left and honestly what my own biases were. And what I used to see the middle of America as, and how I've kind of grown away from that. This is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I'm obsessed with that show, Yellowstone, specifically because it kind of destroyed my preconceived notions about a huge part of this country, right? So the show, I think, does a good job in tearing down stereotypes about people in Wyoming, definitely, but ranchers, conservatives, all of that. You watch that show and you start remembering, oh, wait, yeah, they're Americans. They're like us. They have maybe a different lifestyle, but at the end of the day, they want the exact same things. I think what's important is to, like, again, bring the temperature down for a second and give Americans accurate information about what the policies would really do, and then allow them to vote on that on their own, right? Instead of trying to sway them in one direction or another. Americans know that healthcare is broken in this country. I think that, there's a lot of, on both sides, certainly. I mean, corporate Democrats and corporate media like MSNBC, they hate Medicare for all. I mean, they've been tearing it down from the beginning. Same with CNN. The question that we heard over and over again when Bernie Sanders was running and promoting Medicare for all was, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Okay, great. They don't ask the same question when it comes to shelling out tens of billions of dollars for a war effort in Ukraine. Like, there is no debate about it. Now, look, I happen to think it's important to help Ukraine defend itself, because we made security commitments after Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. We were part of those negotiations. I think it's important to keep our promises. But with that said, it is interesting how the corporate media puts its thumb on the scale. They pretend like, oh my God, this is the most costly thing in the world. How are we going to pay for it? But when it comes to other issues, like issues that would enrich defense contractors, there is no conversation about how we're going to pay for it. That's a problem.
I mean, I totally agree that we should always have the conversation.
And so there it is. Again, it just falls back in terms of, which side that you're on. And so Anna made some good points there, that corporate Democrats, when they talk about something in many aspects, and I guess you would say probably Republicans too, but many times it falls on a Democrat. We ask them, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Where's the money going to come from? And on those issues, we ask where the money is going to come from. But like she said, Republicans, corporate Democrats, funding Ukraine, sending multi-billions of dollars. It's going to be close to $150 billion of aid that we send to Ukraine. No one's asking, how are we going to pay for that? They nickel and dime the American citizens on things to help Americans with. American families, American workers, American companies, small businesses. That gets nickeled and dimed. Oh, Social Security, Medicare. I mean, you know what? We don't have the money to pay for that. We can't do that. We can't cut their hair. We got to cut something over here. We got to cut something over here. We got to shave it over here. I mean, that's what happens. But do we ever take a look and go, you know what? We're sending $50 billion package of aid to Ukraine. Did they even look at it to say they just come up with a number, $50 billion, write the check, send the money over? Did somebody say, why 50? Why not 40? Why not 30? Why not we just give them 10? And then see if we can, where's that conversation? It's not there. It's occurring on both sides. And the American people, American citizens, American businesses, small businesses in particular, are getting screwed. They're getting the shaft. No Vaseline, bend over, take it. That's what's happening. Anyways, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Comment below. Let us know what you thought of this debate, part 5 between Anna and Ben. And I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.